Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani Kleklas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, your daily portal into the pertinent stories shaping our continent. Today's show covers Zimbabwe's court clearing the way for Gukurahundi public hearings in Bulawayo, sparking intense national debate. A confidential UN report reveals Rwanda's direct command over M23 rebels in eastern Congo, heightening regional tensions. In Uganda, a prominent MP's abduction raises political alarm ahead of elections. Meanwhile, Harare residents face new water levies and infrastructure failures. Citizens in Angola and Cape Verde demand Portugal return stolen cultural artifacts. Economically, Kenya prepares to list state assets to attract private investment. And finally, Dangote challenges Africa to transform into an economic powerhouse within 5 years. Watch us and more on DSTV 285, GoTV 25, oneup2.com and NTV Africa on YouTube. And keep in mind, on OneUp2, there is the Echo tab. If you click that, you have access to all our episodes and episodes from other shows on NTV. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top story shortly.
Taking flight has never been easier. Paratus is introducing Sky-Fi internet packages with speeds that will have you reaching for your seatbelts. Starting from $500 Namibian excluding VAT per month, with speeds reaching up to 10 megabits per second. There's even a prepaid option where you can top up your Sky-Fi internet for just $15 Namibian per gigabyte. No contracts, no fuss. Visit your nearest Paratus branch to find out more. Or go to paratus.africa/Namibia to sign up online.
Always prepared, Paratus.
In our top stories, a Zimbabwean court has rejected an urgent application by the Zimbabwe African People's Union, ZAPU, to block public hearings on the Gukurahundi massacres, atrocities committed in the 1980s by elite troops under former President Robert Mugabe. ZAPU argued the hearings, led by traditional chiefs, lack neutrality and risk becoming state propaganda. However, the Bulawayo High Court ruled the challenge was not filed urgently and allowed the hearings to proceed. Victim advocacy groups see the process as an overdue opportunity for truth-telling and redress, while critics warn of historical whitewashing. The hearings will collect testimonies from survivors, with civil society organizations insisting on full transparency and accountability. The process has reignited national debate over Zimbabwe's past and whether current leadership can credibly confront the legacy of state-led violence. A confidential United Nations report has accused Rwanda of exerting direct command and control over the M23 rebel group during its recent military campaign across Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, including Goma, Bukavu, and Walikale. According to the report seen by Reuters, Rwanda provided advanced military equipment, tactical training, and deployed thousands of troops in violation of UN arms embargoes. The UN experts claim Rwanda's aim was not merely defensive, despite Kigali's long-standing concerns over FDLR militia threats, but instead to seize mineral-rich Congolese territory and expand regional influence. The report states that Rwanda hosted rebel leaders at its Gabiro training facility and gave strategic battlefield orders, including decisions to capture or withdraw from towns like Walikale. An estimated 6,000 Rwandan troops were active in North and South Kivu provinces at the height of the offensive. Meanwhile, Congo is also accused of violating sanctions by arming ethnic Hutu militias and pro-government forces. As tensions rise, the Trump administration has brokered a fragile peace deal in Washington between Rwanda and Congo. Qatar is mediating parallel talks with M23 and Congolese officials. Moving on. Uganda Member of Parliament Barnabas Kasimire has alleged he was abducted at gunpoint in Kampala due to his outspoken criticism of General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, son of President Yoweri Museveni. In a televised interview, Kasimire revealed that armed men forcibly took him from his location, subjected him to torture, and threatened him over his comments about General Muhoozi's political ambitions. The MP, known for his independent stance and vocal opposition to the increasing militarization of the Ugandan politics, claims this was a targeted effort to silence dissenting voices. He also raised concerns about rising impunity and shrinking democratic space in Uganda, especially as 2026 elections approach. The incident has sparked fresh debate on human rights abuses and the use of state-linked violence against critics. Security forces have not yet commented on the matter. Now, Tinkasi Mire is calling for an investigation and says he will not be intimidated into silence. Civil society groups have condemned the attack, calling it a grave threat to democracy. In our next story, in Harare, Zimbabwe, residents in dry suburbs like Mavuku, where taps haven't run in years, are now being charged a new levy to repay a $144 million Chinese loan meant to upgrade the city's water system. The infrastructure upgrades promised after a deadly cholera outbreak in 2008 to 2009 never materialized. Instead, the city council reportedly diverted some funds to purchase luxury vehicles, and loan disbursements were eventually frozen due to mismanagement and Zimbabwe's failure to repay earlier debts. Despite no visible improvement in water access, citizens now face monthly payments, sparking outrage among struggling households already paying out of pocket for private water. Activists argue the loan was unconstitutional and demand accountability. Harare Mayor Jacob Mafume defends the project, claiming visible improvements at treatment plants and insisting the city must recover its costs locally. However, civil society voices warn this sets a dangerous precedent, forcing ordinary Zimbabweans to shoulder debt for failed projects marred by corruption and secrecy. As the city's water output declines far below demand, frustration grows over a tax burden for water that, for many, remains only a memory. And a new cross-national poll has revealed that the majority of citizens in Angola and Cape Verde want Portugal to return cultural artifacts looted during its colonial rule and issue an official apology for centuries of exploitation. The survey conducted by Lisbon's Catholic University in partnership with RTP found that 58% of Angolans and 63% of Cape Verdeans demand the repatriation of masks, sculptures, and ritual objects, while nearly 60% in both countries believe an apology is overdue. Although 54% of Portuguese respondents support returning the artifacts, a majority reject calls for an apology. Portugal's colonial legacy, marked by the forced enslavement of nearly 6 million Africans, remains a divisive issue, especially as its far-right Chega party blocks restitution efforts. Despite rising global calls for repatriations, only 58% of Portuguese support a memorial to victims of slavery. Meanwhile, Lisbon's long-delayed Riverside Slavery Memorial remains mired in controversy. The poll underscores growing frustration in Lusophone Africa after Portugal's reluctance to confront its imperial past, even as looted heritage remains displayed in European institutions far removed from the communities they were taken from. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, we're going to be talking to Ari Hochad as he delivers the South Africa report, but prior to that, it's the weather.
Running a business isn't just about hitting the big milestones, it's also about handling the day-to-day. From equipping your office, to closing deals over lunch, to managing your team's expenses while they're on the go. Now, with the FNB Business Credit Card, you can handle everyday expenses with ease. Enjoy up to 44 days of interest-free credit, unlimited swipes, and real-time expense tracking, so you're always in control. Apply for an FNB business credit card. Contact us today to get started. FNB, how can we help you?
It's time for us to get the South Africa report as is delivered by Ari Hohad. Ari, good morning. How are you?
Yes, very good morning, Ashwin. Yes, nice to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, Ari. Now, in your current affairs segment, South Africa is set to strengthen its transition to a low-carbon economy, and this is following the approval of a loan from the African Development Bank to fund several key initiatives. Also, Ari, the U.S. tariff freeze will expire on 9 July 2025, while discussions continue around a new trade framework between the USA and South Africa. Take it away.
Yes, thank you, Ashwin. Yes, indeed. There's possibly in this case regarding the loan, there's some positives and negatives. The negative would be that South Africa do have a massive amount of government debt at the moment, but I'll touch on that just now. But the reality is at the moment that the African Development Bank Group, they approved a loan to South Africa for 8.4 billion South African rand. That will go straight to a group called South African government group called the South Africa Infrastructure Governance and Green Growth Program. So it's quite a long word. But they're responsible to bolster South Africa's transition to a low carbon economy. So that is quite important. There's lots of pressure on South Africa using lots of diesel in generating electricity, also using lots of coal in that process as well. The money will be used for expanding renewable energy capacity. So that is green energy, obviously, and enhancing transport efficiency. So the transport efficiency is quite important, and that's the people, the African Development Bank that approved that. So enhancing transport efficiency is the big component for South Africa, specifically for the rail, Ashwin. So that is Transnet Freight is a big component in South African rail. South Africa actually do have the best rail track system in Africa. There's 21,000 kilometers network. There you can see one of the, that is the heavy haul line trains. There's the 1,500 kilometers heavy haul lines that South Africa do have. The problem at the moment is that of all the volumes, the heavy volumes that is moved annually, the rail system only currently have a capacity of 20% that they move of that, and it used to be 70%. So it needs to get up there again. To put it into tons, it used to be 170 million tons, and South Africa hope to have that at 250 million tons by 2030. So it's all about the green energy, about locomotives that will also be more green as well, and the whole system to be more green. But at least there's money that was lent. The problem for South Africa is that South Africa do have a big debt. South Africa debt to the GDP is very high. It's almost 76, 77%. So that's quite high. South Africa have a debt of 6.29 trillion South African rand. So that's a lot of money. Every year, South Africa pays 390 billion South African rand just in interest. So we're not alone in that. That's happening all over the world, I suppose. It's happening in households as well, but it is concerning. So hopefully the new green energy will also bring in more money as well. And then also you touched on the trade with the USA. Yes, the tariff freeze will end on the 9th of July. Everybody's a bit nervous. There was US-Africa summit that was just last week, so there was no set agreement from that. That's the Minister of Finance, Mr. Gukurahundi. And so at the moment, it is a new trade template that's been put on the table. Lots of information also still coming from the USA regarding that. But the SA automotive authorities, they expressed anxiety over this because they add 5.2% to the South African economy, and they add 14% of all exports. It was a good month for car exports to the USA. There was almost 35,000 units that went to the USA last month. So that's growing. And it's a big value of billions of rand coming in there. So they don't need big tariffs being slapped on them. So hopefully that new trade template will be a good one. So that is in current news at the moment, Ashwin.
We're still with Ari Hochad as he delivers the South Africa report. We now dive into sport. The Springbok men's rugby team will face Italy in the first of two test matches in Pretoria on Saturday, while the Proteas men's cricket team begin their second five-day test against Zimbabwe.
Yes, Ashwin. So on the sports field, Namibia had a good look at Italy last week, Friday. Italy had quite a big win against the Belvicias in Windhoek. Now they play in Pretoria. That's going to be a tough assignment for Italy as well, for South Africa as well, because Italy improved quite a bit. So it's on Saturday, 5:10. The Springboks, they're in action still against the Barbarians in Cape Town. They will play in Pretoria. That's Pretoria. That's Loftus Versfeld. It will be as many people. And 5:10 kickoff time. Nice story for me here. One player making his debut, Vincent Tetsuka from the Sharks. I like him. He's a 7 flanker, 1.95 meters tall, 107 kgs. A nice, strong, loose forward that will make his debut. So that's all to play for the Springboks playing against Italy, the first of two tests. And then also cricket, you touched on. The first test was done. South Africa, the cricket team, they have a status now as the World Test champions. So they had a good performance in Harare, beating Zimbabwe in the first test. The second test will start on Sunday. And the news from the team is that Kashif Maharaj, he was the captain there. He is Maharaj. He's injured. He's got a groin injury. He can't play in the second test starting on Sunday, replaced by Vian Mulder to be the captain. So South Africa, it's a good time for South African cricket. They're playing good cricket, and that is Vian Mulder. He will be the captain of the South African team playing against Zimbabwe in the second test. Hopefully for them, they can try and win the series 2-0. So that is sports news at the moment. Looking forward to that over the weekend.
All right, Ari. Now, should someone be visiting Pretoria, are there any spots or spaces you would recommend?
Yes, indeed, Ashwin, and many people visiting Pretoria for the rugby test on Saturday. That's why I went in the direction of Pretoria. I'm actually going to be there as well, reporting for Namibian media for the rugby, the Italy test. And one place I'll first visit is the rugby stadium. So we had a photo of that. The other one would be on Saturday morning before the game. Go to the farmers market. But before you go to the farmers market, you can go to the Union buildings. That's the Union buildings with a massive statue of former President Nelson Mandela there. That's the farmers market. Lots to see that 200 stalls. It's been going for almost 20 years. It's homemade bake. You can have food and drink there, and the kids can have live animals, or there is live farm animals for the kids as well. So it's a very popular market, early morning market in Pretoria, one of several markets. But then also nip over to the Union buildings, as I mentioned. That's the SA government Union buildings. Steep in history. It's ironically, it will obviously go back to the apartheid times as well, but it was built in 1913. That is the Union buildings in South Africa. And it is also interesting to visit. There's the Union buildings built in 1913. The interior is a Cape Dutch style, so that is quite interesting. But what I would like to go see there is exactly that. That is a 9-meter statue. That's the biggest statue in the world of former President Nelson Mandela. That is massive. So he deserves a statue like that. So that's all to be seen at the Union buildings in Pretoria. So I'll make my way around there and have a look at the Union buildings and maybe nip around to the farmers market as well to get some nice food and drinks there. So that is all happening. That is South African news. If you're in Pretoria, visit the Union buildings.
Well, a little bit of charming, a little bit of majestic, certainly worth a visit. Thank you very much, Ari, for bringing us the comprehensive South Africa report.
Thank you, Ashwin. Very nice talking, and blessed the day for everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Now, Kenya's President William Ruto announced plans to privatize key state assets. We'll be talking about that after economic indicators. Kenya's President William Ruto announced plans to privatize key state assets through initial public offerings, starting with the Kenya Pipeline Company's listing on the Nairobi Securities Exchange later this year. Speaking at the London Stock Exchange, Ruto emphasized a structured and time-bound program aimed at increasing private sector participation to strengthen the country's capital markets and reduce dependence on external debt. This move follows Kenya's struggle with economic shocks, including nationwide protests last year and this year that forced austerity measures and the cancellation of proposed tax hikes worth $2.68 billion. Ruto highlighted Kenya's efforts to mobilize domestic resources and attract private investment, particularly after the elimination of USAID funding from the US. He also shared plans to partner with private firms for hospital equipment provision on a fee-per-use basis, while noting the country has already raised $1.3 billion through securitizing infrastructure assets like roads. The government intends to list these bonds on the Securities Exchange, offering new investment opportunities for domestic and international investors. Africa's richest man, Nigerian industrialist Aliko Dangote, urged Africans to embrace bold thinking and a long-term vision to transform the continent into a thriving heaven in just 5 years. Speaking at the 32nd annual meeting of the African Export-Import Bank, Dangote emphasized the need for African champions to believe in their continent's potential and focus on creating wealth rather than just accumulating it. Central to his vision is the $20 billion Dangote refinery in Lagos, Africa's largest single-train oil refinery, which began fuel production last year and is already disrupting European oil markets. Dangote's refinery aims to reduce Africa's dependence on imported gasoline, valued at $17 billion annually. Despite global economic uncertainties and trade tensions, Dangote projects his conglomerate will generate $30 billion in revenue next year and plans to become the world's largest urea exporter within 4 years. His call for Africans to take ownership of their economic destiny resonates strongly as the continent seeks to boost industrialization and reduce reliance on foreign aid and imports. Those have been our stories on Africa Good Morning. Thank you for joining us on DSTV 285, Core TV 25, oneup2.com, and NTV Africa on YouTube. Keep in mind, when you go on oneup2.com, there is the echo icon. Over there, you have access to this and all other Africa Good Morning episodes, as well as other shows from NTV. But for now, from me, Ashumberi, and the Africa Good Morning team, Swera Jaganaka.